Welcome back to the Alcohol Free Revolution podcast. My name's James Lloyd,
And my name is Steve Smith.
and we're both alcohol free performance coaches. We set up this podcast. It's going to be a year quite soon,
It is. It's coming up. It's coming
be-
up.
because we wanted to, really give people an opportunity to find out what it's like to be alcohol free. If they're sober curious, come and join the fun side of the island. And
You've not said that one for a while.
no, I haven't actually. I pinched
Oh,
that from Andy Ramage. That's one of
yeah.
Andy Ramage's
Yeah.
sayings. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of alcohol-free podcasts out there, sure. But this is about kind of getting people together, sharing the joys of being alcohol-free, and trying to encourage people to come and jump on board if it's something that they feel they want to do. If you're questioning your relationship with alcohol and you're thinking about making a change, this is the place to be.
Awesome. So, how's things been for you last week?
Yeah, pretty busy. Lots of stuff going on with coaching. Getting ready for the summer. All that kind of stuff. What about
Fired up
yourself?
the barbecue yet?
No, not yet. It's a bit of a mess from last year, to be quite honest. But
Is that when you open it the first time in the
yeah,
spring?
it's
It's
just
like, oh my God.
yeah,
But yeah,
horrible.
we've fired ours up. Had it the other day.
Have you?
To eat indoors, but cooked outside. So we're making progress. But yeah, I've been good. Been in Spain. It's been
Have
lovely.
you?
Yes,
Whereabouts in
sun's been
Spain?
shining. So flew into Malaga and travelled up through past Ronda to El Chorro and did a bit of a hike of the Caminito del Rey with the boys, and then well, and my wife Jo, of course.
Uh-huh.
Just to clarify, that the last thing we want to do is like Steve's no longer with Joe after the episode.
I was gonna say, so you started talking. You started talking to her again then.
Yeah, and then we went over to Cadiz and the Atlantic coast. So it's been glorious to get a bit of spring sunshine and hopefully come back to what I hope to be a glorious summer.
Ah, fantastic. And we've unfortunately during that time we've had to put the Alcohol Free Revolution community on hold because you've not been around, and I was a doctor's appointment as well, but when we go into that. So, but we're back. We're back with the Alcohol Free Community this week, which happens at 12 o'clock every Monday. We get together as a group and just chatting about alcohol free stuff. And it's great.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's awesome, awesome. And if you want to be part of that, it's completely free. It's not an AA meeting. It's just an opportunity to get together, have a good old chat about alcohol-free life. If you're thinking about it, if you're in it, if you've been in it for years, or just want to find out a little bit more, just fire us the word interested, or just pop us an email to info@thealcoholfreerevolution.co.uk.
Fantastic. So this week we have got, do you know what? We've got a guest on this week who I don't know why we've not invited them on sooner. So it's a good friend of yours and mine,
Hmm.
Jo Hans, her name is. And we met Jo, how long ago would it have been now, Steve?
Coming up for 2 years now.
Yeah, so
Two
Joe
years
was
in May.
on our coaching course when we trained with Andy Ramage to be coaches. Joe's not an alcohol-free coach. She coaches people through retirement, so deciding what to do next when they're coming up to retirement. But she is absolutely bloody awesome, and she had a real impact on me on my coaching journey really because I remember when we were coaching together, she put a video out on LinkedIn talking about quitting alcohol, and it was just had so much warmth and so much honesty, and I thought that is brilliant. I've got to do that, and I kind of ripped her off, well, not ripped her off, but kind of copied her video and put one out myself, and that was the very first thing I put out on social media about coaching. So the reason we wanted to get her on is that Joe is, she's in midlife. She's a woman in her 50s. And one of the things I think that doesn't get spoken about enough is the impact that alcohol has on menopause. And, it's huge. There was a report that came out from the NHS in 2023 that pinpointed that women in their 50s are the heaviest drinking sector of society. And many women obviously go through, well, all women go through menopause. Not many of them. All of them do. I feel like I'm mansplaining menopause again.
You are a bit.
My wife tells me off a lot for this, but the impact that alcohol has on menopause cannot be underestimated. A lot of women will think that it's helping, but the reality is it's making menopause symptoms worse. And Joe talks a lot about that in this interview, and I think for a lot of women, it'll be a bit of hopefully a bit of a eureka moment. So yeah, that's why we wanted to get Jo on and talk about her story. She was quite a big drinker, as she explains, and now she's absolutely living her best life. And
Absolutely.
it was a
Absolutely.
really great conversation to have. So
It
yeah,
was great. Let's, without further ado, welcome to
here's
the
Jo.
podcast.
It's Jo
Jo.
Hans. This week we are joined by a very good friend of ours, Jo Hans, who we met a couple of years ago when we were training to be coaches. And be honest, we've been meaning to get her on the show for ages because she is a fascinating woman who I always thoroughly enjoy speaking to. And I'm kind of quite conscious that we have a lot of listeners within our alcohol free revolution community who are around about same point in life that Jo is. So we want to get her on and speak about her experience of how she grew up around alcohol, been going through the 90s, working in London. I shall explain all this a lot better than I do, to where she is now. So Jo, welcome to the Alcohol Free Revolution podcast.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, guys. Thank you so much for having me. And wow, that's interesting. I'm a fascinating woman. I love that, Jace. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd also like
Who
to
wouldn't
point
want to be here?
I'd also like to point out if you need your alcohol-free night out organizing, Joe is most definitely
I
your
am.
go-to.
Yeah, I'm the
Most
one.
definitely. Yeah. So Joe, I mean, as always with our guests on the pod, we kind of not go back to the beginning, but
Yeah.
we obviously met you well coming up 2 years ago now, I suppose, when we started training with Andy, and we were all on the same cohort, so it's almost like a reunion show. But
Yes.
being alcohol free yourself, why don't we rewind a little bit and what was your experience of alcohol when you were growing up or younger?
Oh, it was a friend. It sort of lived in my home life as something to be embraced and enjoyed and a friend. And there was really nothing dysfunctional about it. It was completely normalized. Everybody drank. There was never any excessive drinking. There was never anything abusive. There wasn't any drunkenness, but it was a completely constant presence, I suppose. I'm talking family holidays every time we went away, predominantly in the UK. It would be about back in the 70s, because I was born at the end of the 60s. My father liked to have a beer at lunchtime, and it really was just one beer. I mean, he's not here
Mm,
anymore, and I'm not going to portray him as somebody, but he liked to have a beer at lunchtime. So it was always finding a pub that you could take children in, or had a family room, something like that. And I
Mm,
can remember back in the 70s, there'd been a pub near where we lived that had this family room and being rushed through the bar that was this space. You mustn't spend, and children, my goodness, you were like put into this room at the back, and this real feeling of the bar was not where children were allowed. So that, and then as I hit my teenage years, and alcohol was, I suppose, introduced, allowed. I don't know what the correct framing for that would be, really, but yeah, I guess having some martini and you're then going through the teenage years, and I was extremely shy, like really, really shy and awkward. And I had quite bad skin in my teenage years, which made that shyness even more exacerbated, I suppose.
mm,
And I guess, like many people say, it gives you a bit of social armor. And it was like everyone was doing it. And I was away at boarding school from the age of 11 to 18. So there was sort of smuggling. I mean, this sounds disgusting now, but smuggling neat gin back in jam jars and sitting in your bed and sipping it. Like, anyway, yeah. And then as you progress through the school, and there would be, I went to an all girls school, so there'd be like socials with boys' schools, and I can't even remember. I don't think we were really allowed alcohol. In fact, alcohol at school was really frowned upon.
it
Smoking
still
was,
is apparently.
mm.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think they serve it at school.
I think that my husband went to an all boys school or
So
mixed,
did
and they
I.
were
So did I.
definitely allowed the odd drink. But I went to a school in the middle of the Lake District, which now I love to spend time in the Lake Districts, but back then not so much. I don't really remember booze being much of a thing, but we did sometimes get to the pub at the weekend, but it was like really serious. I mean, like really serious, probably an expulsion offence. Whereas smoking, they turned a blind eye. So I probably spent kind of more time between 16 and 18 smoking than I did drinking. But then when I left school at 18, all bets were off. And
Mm,
going to college and being quite socially anxious and out in the world and started going to bars and clubs and stuff, I now realise I couldn't really do that unless I was pretty far gone pissed,
yeah.
um, because I was really shy. So yeah, and the drinks were cider, I suppose, gin and tonic. In fact, I did hear, and I think one of you guys said this the other week. Somebody mentioned it might have been David Wilson, Sober Dave, Diamond White.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
Oh
I
yeah,
can
yeah.
remember going up and hanging out with a load of rugby players with a friend, and we were drinking Diamond White and Diamond Blush. I was about
Ugh.
19 or
I don't think
20.
they make Diamond White anymore,
I
do
think they
they? Oh,
do.
do they?
I
Because there
know
was
I
that.
a.
don't know if they still make it, but I definitely got on it
Yeah.
with some my friend. She had friends that played rugby, and we were in with some rugby team in Nottingham. Um, and it was really that, I guess, I said a bit. I think that I just got a bit on that ladette culture. And then when I started working, I worked for these agencies. I worked on the edge of the city. I did corporate and financial communications for banks, and I worked on the advertising side and then the graphic design side, but we also had a PR arm, and it was all quite sort of very respectable. But you had it was almost mandatory to go to Thursday night drinks in the office. The two guys that owned the company would be there, sort of holding forth. I mean, they were terribly well spoken. It was all, again, it was incredibly socially respectable, but you were expected at Thursday night drinks every week, and it just that's just how it was. I mean, it's just how it was. And then as I moved, my career developed and I started entertaining clients. Again, that's how it was. And actually, two of my clients, I had British American Tobacco as a client. So they never wanted to come to us for meetings, because at that time, smoking in offices was starting to become a thing that you couldn't do anymore, but you could smoke there.
Really?
And I also worked with alcohol brands. I worked with an organisation called Allied Domec for a
Oh
few
yeah.
years, for a client of mine. They don't exist anymore, but so I was around the whole language of, certainly with British American Tobacco as well, in their graduate recruitment and their corporate communications. I understood, and I was hearing about growth markets and looking for growth and markets. But anyway, there was no questions around alcohol. I mean, we were just all on it. It was just party, party, party all the time.
I think what I'm picturing when you're talking is Mad Men. Have you seen Mad Men?
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah, I
literally
have.
they're just smoking and like
Yeah.
drinking whiskey like at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I remember watching that with Chris, my wife's um her uncle, and he was saying that it literally was like that at the time. That it's not it,
Mm.
how it's portrayed in Mad Men. I think it started to wane a little bit by the late 80s. But I remember when I did work experience when I was 16, and they're all just smoking all in the office.
Yeah.
And now the idea just completely blows your mind, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
unreal. It's
smoking in
unreal.
the office was huge, and it started to be phased out in the period of time that I was working in London. Drinking was not, no, we weren't quite at the Mad Men stage of alcohol at the desk, but certainly after office hours and straight down the pub, and the in-house Thursday night drinks was a big thing for one company I worked for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Well, I remember when I worked at Warner Brothers, which is only 15 years ago. The MD used to bring around the drinks trolley on a Friday
Mm.
afternoon, and that was only 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I was the same. I was the
Wow.
same in Co, and it was, it was often we'd have our Tuesday, once a month we'd have our Tuesday menu tasting up in London, and we'd be doing wine pairings at 10 o'clock in the morning with the new menu.
Mm.
And then it was like, well, as you said, all bets are off from there. The meeting finished at midday. So where did you go? Straight over to the pub, and you'd spend the whole day there. And that was very much it was that drinking culture at work for me that kind of was definitely what impacted my drinking more towards the end of my
Yeah.
drinking career, shall we say. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about it being introduced to it, though, that's just the way it was, right? In the 70s, I was
Oh, yeah.
exactly the same. My parents had a bar.
My parents had a bar as well, and I can remember my father. It was almost like sort of it was like this sliding door thing. That it wasn't like a bar. It was what it was where actually when they'd moved in, they'd taken a heating system out from the house, and it left this like sort of like cupboard, like a cupboard, I guess, that you could stand up in. And so that was like the bar, when they put a work counter in there, and that was where all the drinks were mixed. And when I was younger, it's where the soda stream lived. And then as I got older, of course, it wasn't the soda stream anymore. It was the other drinks. But yeah, and going home and going home, going to my parents, the drinking thing. And it was all after I got married and moving through my 20s. And it was all just really lovely. And it was quite like going on this sort
Mm.
of mini break where you were served drinks and food. And it was, I mean, it was genuinely really nice. But there are things that flash back into my memory now that I have only remembered since I stopped drinking. And one thing was, I can remember after being married for a few years, thinking of the convers, thinking about, well, we're starting a family one day. It was something I'd always assumed we want to do, try to do, just never really put a date to it. And I can remember sitting there around the dinner table one evening, having probably had a couple of gin and tonics and then drinking whatever with dinner,
Mm.
thinking, oh God, but all this will have to stop. And being a bit kind of like, oh, about that, like resentful. I mean, that's
Mm.
like, you know, how insidious as I replay that now, 26 years later, I definitely remember having that thought of, oh God, I won't really be able to drink if I want to start a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I did. And then I think that explains quite a lot. What, and I remember the last job I had, I bloody loved that job. And it was really getting some velocity behind it. And I remember going to at the time I didn't know it would be my leaving do or going on maternity leave, but I went to it 8 months pregnant. And again, thinking really quite pissed off that I couldn't be drinking at my own leaving do because every other leaving do I'd been to had been like real like get on it.
Mm.
And I was watching everyone else get on it. And I had a baby on board, and I genuinely felt like this was a bit. I almost thought I'm going to come back when I've had the baby and a few months down the line, and we'll get on it then.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I really remember having those thoughts. And as I
So
say,
what?
started a family.
So what? Bearing in mind what you've spoken about in terms of the '90s and all of your work background, where you were properly submerged in the drinking culture,
Mm.
what was the real turning point for you then? What made you? Why did you decide to go alcohol free?
Oh golly, I don't think there was. That's a question I've thought about a lot, whether there was one turning point. I don't think there was, and I think this is where this fits into the whole female hormonal menopausal things. I do know that when the children were, so I do know that at some point in the noughties, and I can't remember exactly when, drinking, I took about a 6 week break from alcohol. And I don't really remember why I did, but I remember that I did. And I remember I felt well and I looked well. And I think the drinking had just ticked up a bit around the putting the children, that whole young children. And I now know that alcohol was pushed at mothers at the most vulnerable state. But at that time, no, there was no thought really about, I can't really remember. But what I'd become aware of, and I really think it's over the course of a decade, and I realise now it's what is the perimenopause, is that I was feeling not that great. And things were changing for me physically and mentally. And it was like whack-a-mole of trying to get on top of various different things. But alcohol was just not ever going to be on the table for discussion. But I don't think life was just that much fun
Mm.
anymore. And it was more about managing symptoms, it was about reducing risk, it was about, I mean, like, honestly, I can't, I've been to the doc, I look at the amount of missed opportunities there were for somebody to have asked me some questions that I needed to have been asked, and I would not have wanted to have been asked those questions,
Mhm.
which would have been the starting question of about something about my alcohol consumption. I mean, I've nearly had my thyroid removed. I went on omeprazole and I was told that my stomach overproduced stomach acid. Oh, and by the way, you think you sound like you're pregnant, you should do a pregnancy test. This was when I was in my early 40s. Then I was tested for celiac twice. I think I did three bowel cancer tests. I went to see a gynecologist. I went to see an endocrinologist. I tried various forms of HRT before I'd gone through the menopause bit. Never once was I ever asked, how much do you drink?
Mm.
The only time I was ever asked about drinking, and I remember getting quite like, God, that's a bit of a bloody cheek, is the dentist. When
It's
dental
nuts, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
absolutely
practices
nuts when you
Yeah.
put those
started
tests.
to bring in dental practice, they started bringing forms that you had to fill in before going for
Yeah.
your annual checkup, or certainly mine did. And on that form was a question about how much you drank. And I
Mm.
remember thinking, really being quite cross about that. And now I understand probably there's looking for signs of esophageal mouth tongue cancer. I understand now why, but nobody asked me about drinking. And what I now realise was with my mental health and my digestive system, alcohol was just not was it was ruining it, absolutely ruining it.
Mm.
And I've lost count of the number of times being away with friends or on holiday or somewhere where a few days in, I would just be not very well. And sometimes it was psychological. I just would feel extremely anxious, or we'd go out for a meal somewhere and I would just be feeling so odd that I wouldn't be able to stay in the restaurant. I'd have to get up and leave. Um, and I just didn't join. I didn't join the dots because I didn't have the information to be able to see what might be in play here. So had I been smoking and I'd started to be feeling a bit breathlessness or a bit of a tight chest or had some circulatory
Mm.
problems or a bit of a cough, I could have maybe started to think, oh, that might be the cigarettes might be having an
Mm.
impact here. But actually, to be honest, I genuinely, in much of it, never thought alcohol was anything to do with any of this.
We
Like, never
never,
even occurred to me.
yeah, we never do join the dots like that. Yeah, it's exactly that point. I mean, I was grabbing some cases down a couple of weeks ago to go pack away to go on holiday, and I opened up one of the sleeves, and inside it I found like two or three packets of Rennie, and I was like,
Mm.
I never used. I used to eat those like sweets because I always had acid indigestion or whatever it was, and I never ever related it to that.
No,
I had an incident.
I went on a low FODMAP diet. I
Yeah,
did all the research.
everything.
I could give you a list of the food that I cut out of my diet.
Yeah.
And I stand here now as somebody who hasn't had a drink for nearly 3 years, and I'm like, how on earth did that ever make sense? How did
Mm.
you go from listening to, I can't remember his name now, who did Zoe, did set up the Zoe app, listening to his podcast about nutrition, proudly thinking, yes, you eat 30 different coloured foods a week, to then deciding that they weren't doing you any good because
Do you
they
know what
were
though?
a high FODMAP.
It's Professor Tim Spector you're talking about
Yeah,
from
Tim
Zoe,
Spector.
and
So I, yeah, yeah.
he's a big red wine drinker. There's a lot of mixed messages that comes from Zoe, but that's a slightly different thing.
Well, I don't remember anything about alcohol, but what I do remember was being so. Um, I wanted to be. This is what I'll come back. I wanted to be eating well. So, this is one of my things around alcohol. How it's this. God, it's so clever, isn't it? How it just is able to be present in the room all the time with no one looking at it. I mean,
Mm.
there was me going to and from the doctors with apparently over stomach issues, digestive issues. Ended up with what's the IBS? Anyway, definitely I had IBS. Nobody, alcohol's never questioned. I can't tell you how many people I know and see. We're all tottering around, clutching HRT in one hand and a glass of alcohol in the other, and it's like, really? Or the number of people I know in my life or have come conversations having conversations now about high blood pressure or wearing heart monitors for a period of time. Um,
Mm,
and again, it's all other so many stressful things going on in my life. And alcohol is not even meant, no one's asking it, no one's talking about it because we don't
Mm.
know how to have that conversation because it, it I sound like it's like you feel that you can't ask because you may be being deemed as judgmental. But now I see I should have been asked. I might not have wanted, I wouldn't have wanted to be, and I probably might have got quite cross and quite annoyed and thought a bit, but it would have planted that seed of,
mm,
maybe. I wouldn't want to
Mm.
know it, but I should have been asked.
we were we were talking about it off air before we started recording. There was a bit of research that came out in 2023 that the NHS published that showed that women in their 50s are the highest drinking sector of society.
Yeah, I can
And
believe it.
that is mind blowing when you sort of think
I know.
about, you know, I've got to be careful not to try and mansplain menopause to anyone here, particularly you, Joe. My wife always tells me off for this. Stop mansplaining stuff to me. But, you know, fundamentally, menopause is about hormone changes,
Yeah,
correct, in the brain. And alcohol's one of the biggest hormone disruptors that you can put in your body.
yeah,
So you're literally pouring petrol on a bonfire. You know,
yeah, you
Mm.
are.
you're making it worse, and there's such a lack of awareness around that, which is really, you know,
Because
really
it's for
concerning.
for a lot of women, you're already feeling pretty crap, or you can be. So maybe your relationship's changing, your children are maybe growing up, leaving home, whatever. Maybe you've got elderly parents that are dependent on you. Maybe there's career stuff going on. You know, it's like lots of things. All those things are coexisting, right? And you're telling me that the one thing that makes me feel young and fun, or the one thing that cheers me up at the end of the day, or the one thing that puts its proverbial arm around me, you're telling me that I might have to take a look at that or take that away.
Mm.
Yeah, I
You're
get
going
it.
to be told to go and do one, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because of how the culture, how alcohol is so embedded in our cultural psyche, and
Mhm.
how we inherited that relationship with it. And it's only if all of us start to collectively flip that script and say, hang on a minute, and actually, I found this when I stopped, was this, and I can come on to more detail around that, but
Can
in
I
the
just ask
end,
you?
yeah, go on, carry on.
Can I just ask you? I'm just kind of conscious for the obviously, we all know each other, but just for the benefit of people who don't
Mm.
know you, could I just ask you just for a little bit of context in terms of roughly how much would you say you were drinking when before you went alcohol free, and roughly how long ago, or how old were you when you went alcohol free? You mentioned it's about 3 years now.
Yeah, so I went alcohol free 3 years ago. So what's that, 2023? So I was 54.
Uh-huh.
So actually it was, yeah, so I was 54 when I went alcohol free. How much was I drinking? Definitely not every day. I don't know, it changed. I don't really know. It was so varied on where I was, who I was with, what week it was. Was I drinking every week? Yes, I probably was. Was I sharing a bottle of wine with my husband on a Friday night? Probably nearly every week, yes. Would I have had a glass of wine on a Thursday night? Probably most weeks, yes. Would I then drink on a Saturday night? Maybe share another bottle of wine if we were at home? Probably yes. Sometimes was it more than that? Yes. Sometimes was it less than that? Yes. Did I occasionally go out and go on binges with friends or go away for the weekend and drink way more than that? Yes. Um, did I have rules around not drinking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? If I wasn't on holiday, yeah, I wouldn't. I think for me, one of the things that was so in my favour was for 20 years before I stopped drinking, or nearly 20 years, I have been quite a split personality who also cared deeply about fitness and exercising, cared
Mm.
deeply about how the world perceived me. And I was doing those things at the same time. And as I was in the death throes of my relationship with alcohol, I was becoming hyper aware that I never felt more alive, happier, better, more in love with life than when I was up early in the morning walking up a mountain. And I
Mm.
would have those moments where I'd be like, it's like experiencing the science of awe, which is a thing. I do it with my clients, where I'd be like, this is what life is meant to be like. I feel absolutely brilliant. Now, the problem I'd do was I'd come back from that day and think, I feel so brilliant. I've got it.
I'm gonna.
I'll go and have a drink.
Gonna go
And
celebrate with a glass of
then,
wine. Yeah.
and then when I slipped into sort of horrendous hangover depression or whatever was getting worse, I'd feel even more like, how can I make this work? So where I ended up was in this situation of, I've got to make this work. I'm the problem. And in fact, one or two of my friends would say to me, oh, yeah, I've really noticed about you. Yeah, since you're going through the change and stuff, you can't really, almost like you can't really tolerate the drink anymore, or it's causing you problems. And as in problems, not because I was staggering around drunk, but because I clearly just didn't feel very well. And I was having to be very vigilant when I was anywhere, not to have too much to drink because I didn't want to wake up the next morning and be ill in someone else's house or all that kind of stuff. So that was really like quite hard work managing this dysfunctional relationship, because you guys talk about it in your professional life. You're in a relationship with it.
Totally.
And I do a lot of work in the criminal justice system, and I've been doing it for a long time. And the vast majority of people that I support and cases that I see come to court fit under the enormous umbrella of domestic violence, coercive control, sexual, all those things. And I've pretty much been in a room where he has every kind of relationship with the perpetrator that you can imagine. And I started to, and I'm sorry if this is insensitive to people listening, and I really don't mean it to be, but I started to view alcohol through that lens. That this thing did not want anything good for me. It was very seductive on a Friday night. Like, so he'd tell me, like, present, like, be really nice to me. And then the next day, it would leave me feeling dreadful about myself. And I would
Mm.
blame myself, not it. It was always I was the problem. And I had a close friend who developed full-blown alcoholism. Wasn't aware what was going on. And again, I just thought, well, I'm not like that. I still drink. I had a next door neighbor whose son died of alcoholism at the age of 40. And again, I saw drinking again. Seems to always be about the individual, that they are somehow, I don't know, not responsible. Or the problem's them. They couldn't manage it. And look at us, we can. And even the people close to those people I know are drinking and still drinking.
Mm.
And I started to just look at alcohol differently and think, this is insane. We've got it so wrong. This thing, we need to flip the script. And people like Andrew Huberman have talked about this. I've listened to him. I think he's one of the
Mhm.
most downloaded podcasts on
That's right. Yeah.
alcohol ever.
Mm.
It's like, once I'm a very, very curious person. And once I had my eyes and ears opened, and this is one of the things that helped me, you cannot unknow the science and you cannot unknow your own lived experience. Like, you just can't unknow that stuff. Um, and it's real. And the way that alcohol gets away with not having any real light shone on it for what it's responsible for just still blows my mind. But it's a very powerful industry. And just before coming on here today, I was in the supermarket. So, out of curiosity, I just walked down the drinks aisle, and how much that has changed in my
Mm.
adult lifetime. And it's now Sprite with Absolute Vodka, Jack Daniels with Coke. There's all those little tins and little cans and little bright, shiny, beautiful design packaging. It's been made so accessible because they need to be bringing more drinkers online, right? We need to be getting more people drinking as the older drinkers die off. And
Yeah.
and really, for me, my final point I'd make on why I stopped, so I have to be honest about this, is I had seen in my life, I've got an example of, you know what, you might be having a bit of fun with it in your 40s and 50s, but believe you me, if you carry on drinking like this in your 70s and 80s, it is a terrible way to age. And I
Mm.
think there's a lot of misogyny around drinking. And I think women can hide their drinking away because it's not okay for us to be rat-assed at a wedding or in a pub. Men,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I sat next to a guy at a wedding a couple of years ago, and we got into this conversation. And he said, "Oh, how do you?" He said, "How do your friends react when you know that you don't drink?" And I said, "Mixed, really." I said, "Honestly, sometimes I see that flash across the face of sort of not lucky you, but yeah, kind of you like you got out, right?" And he said, I get that." And I said something, and it got into the conversation, got into something like, I said, if I'd been sitting here now matching you drink for drink, I bet you would have said to the he's friend of the bridegroom, I didn't know him at all, "God, thanks, mate. You put me next to a right lush. Bloody hell." I said, but if you were sitting here next to, if I was like, my husband doesn't drink either now, but if he's sitting next to you drinking, you'd have said, "Oh, thanks for putting me next to him. What a guy. Top bloke, top
Mm.
bloke." But
Mm.
what I picked up in the moment, he started sharing with me that, yeah, the things that how he just, it's just a struggle, and he took a bit of time off booze and he'd felt better. But he was surrounded by sort of these quite big characters from this local area he lived in, and I could feel the power of the patriarchy in that moment. And there
Mm.
was
Yeah.
somebody sitting across the table from him who was absolutely king of the jungle in that social group, pouring the wine. And I thought, yeah, I can feel the entrapment here. How do
Mm.
you get out of this?
Have
Mm.
you ever read Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker?
No.
You'd love that. It's exactly what you've talked about, the whole patriarchy, all that kind of thing. So I think you'd love that book, Joe. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
One thing I
Mm.
just wanted to just ask you there. You just very lightly touched upon it, but your husband doesn't drink now. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about?
Oh, yeah, I can. I talk for him.
How did the
Yeah. So
relationship all play out when you quit drinking?
what I realise now is he had a very different relationship with alcohol to me. I will say the night we met, and we met when I was 22 and he was 24, I was absolutely hammered. And it was the day that England had lost to Australia in the Rugby World Cup final at Twickenham.
Right.
We went to an event that night and we met there. We've been together ever since. So that was 1991.
Hmm.
So yeah, we and he was like, we've both always drank. Again, nothing dysfunctional. And but quite often latterly, I would, if we'd been drinking together, and I would feel terrible in the next day. And it didn't take much to make me feel terrible by the end. And he'd look at me and go, it was fun. And I'd think,
Mm.
yeah, was it? God, you're right. It should have been fun and it wasn't. So, but it was, so I stopped in the August, and then that Christmas, which was my first sober Christmas, and it was the only time I had arrived in a situation where I didn't really know what to do. And it wasn't the Christmas, but just before, at the beginning of December, our elder son came back from Australia where he'd been for a year, and I hadn't seen him for a year, and it was a really big thing for me. And we picked him up from Heathrow Airport, really emotional, got in the car, and it was like, yeah, and it was almost straight away, are we going to go to the local pub tonight? And I suddenly was like, I haven't prepared for this. Oh, yeah, well, of course, he's back from a year away. Of course, we go to the pub and we have a drink, and I'll have, and for about 10 seconds, I was like, I'll have a drink. And then I was like, no, 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 we don't. And I didn't. But anyway, then we went through Christmas, and you kind of like sit on the edge, don't you? And you watch how alcohol dictates. You just see it
Yeah,
at
you can
work.
see it differently,
You
can't you?
see it at
Yeah, you
work.
see it.
You can't unsee it. And I find this is one of the hardest things I find being sober because I see it at work. Um, and at the after Christmas New Year, we were going up to Northumberland for a week, beginning of January, just a week, just the two of us. And he looked tired and was running his own business. And I had listened to that a podcast interview that Andy Ramage had given, where he talks about it very much through the business lens of how the challenges he faced as a broker, how his broking business then exponentially took off because he wasn't drinking, and the energy and I knew that would appeal to Adrian. I just knew it would. And I thought because that's him. And so I put it on in the car. We had this long drive and we listened to it. And he decided to do, I don't know if it was dry Jan, I know what it was. He said, I'm going to not drink for the rest of this tax year because I'm for my business. And immediately, well, not immediately, he was like, I know, like if it takes a while for sleep to restore and all the rest of it. But he said by the end of 3 months, wow, the uptick in energy and how he'd shown up for his business and the consistency was like something he'd never known before. And then he sort of carried on and had one or two times where he tried drinking again and or had a drink and then just quickly realized, do you know what? I just I don't really want to do this anymore. But it was the energy thing. I always say that most people look at women with, I don't know, you want to do whatever treatments you want to do or things to make yourself look younger. Nothing will age you more than your energy, and nothing saps your energy more than drinking.
Mm.
Just sucks the life out of you. I'm sorry, but it does. So yeah, so there, so he doesn't. So we're now, how long has he not had a drink for now? It might be 2 years. I think from what I've observed, he's far more likely to get the comments of, are you still not drinking? From his peer group.
Well, even after that amount of time.
Really?
Sometime a few individuals, yeah. And building a new life outside of work is something he's really had to go and consciously put the work into doing
Mm.
because it can be quite lonely. I'm one of these people like you know what? Stopping drinking's just the start. It's how I've ended up doing what I'm doing. It's like, right, I've completely reframed how I see aging, midlife, all of it, and now it's time to get to work.
I think that's
Yeah.
true for all of us. I think
Yeah.
we've
Yeah, it
clearly
really
all
is. It's time to go to work.
we're all here
I,
because we stopped
I'm
drinking.
not, I'm so, get so inner. If anybody hands me a message about feeling rubbish, aging, or something that I think, no, sorry, I'm not subscribing to that.
Mm.
I'm literally not subscribing to that. That's not how it is for me. I sleep better, I'm stronger, I'm fitter, my skin's better, I've got more energy, I've got more confidence. That's the old playbook, that's the old blueprint, and I'm not following it.
Mm.
Exactly. I was out yesterday for a run on the South Downs with a friend of the pod, and we all know Andy Delderfield. I was
Oh
out
yeah,
with him
yeah.
yesterday, and we had a chat, and he said something to me, and I was like, "That's so true." And he said, "It's not about giving up drinking."
It's
That's
not.
when that's not what we're about. It's not about stopping drinking. That's the starting block.
It is.
That's where it all starts from there. And there's
I
so
think
much more.
a lot of people, I know, and I know this gets discussed for a lot of people, and even people I know who haven't had a drink for a long time and openly talk in this space will still say, I can't or I won't say I will never drink again because I
Mm,
don't want to say that. And interestingly, for me, I sat in front of the mirror on the final day, the morning I woke up after my last night of drinking, and I looked in the mirror and I allowed myself to list what I'd had to drink the night before rather than running away from it, which was very uncomfortable. It'd just been a night at home, just the two of us, but we'd
mm,
just ended up having more than we set out to do and playing music. And the next day, I just was like, I will never spend a day of my life, as long as I have my life, I will never spend one more day of it on this planet living like this. And I realized that I never needed to, I never needed to feel shit like this again if I didn't drink. That's how
mm.
simple it was. It really was that simple. And in that moment, I kind of was went a bit weird. I wanted to start running around and telling the world, I don't drink. And I just thought it wasn't about, I'm not somebody who tries not to drink. I am a non-drinker. I'm a non-drinker. And
Yeah,
if you're a non-drinker, my life is so much easier. God, is life easy.
yeah.
You just do what you want to do when you want to do it. You just do. Get up,
And
get
there's
on it.
and there's something amazing about knowing you're never going to have another hangover
It
again,
is,
right?
I tell
Isn't
you,
it just the best feeling in the
it's
world?
the best feeling in the whole world. I will never spend another day of my life hungover, and I
If
will never be away on holiday with, I just realize now how much of my life, whether it was trying to find an excuse to start cooking dinner early or go and meet a friend in the pub or on holiday, wandering, looking at your watch, wondering who we're going to go and sit in a bar, how much alcohol was just making decisions for me all the
mm,
time.
mm,
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it takes quite a long time, or certainly did for me, to realise that I can't sell an alcohol-free lifestyle to somebody else because it has to be a decision that people arrive at their own. You can't sell it to people. It just doesn't work. But I kind of almost wish there was a way that you could kind of say to people, look, just live a day in my body and see how it
mm,
feels
Yeah,
mm,
I
and
know.
compare it to how you feel.
mm.
Just drinking, I don't know, 20, 30 units of alcohol a week, whatever it is you drink, just feel the difference. But obviously
6 months.
you
There's
can't do it.
more.
But you can't communicate it to people. It's very difficult to put it into words so people actually
There are
genuinely understand.
in the younger space, sorry, I know we're all similar age, but there are the likes of Chris Williamson with Modern Wisdom podcast
Yeah, he's great.
and Stephen Bartlett. I listen to Chris a lot, and
Me
he's
too.
very much like I think they had a drink. I think after night of drink, and they talk about God, it was just it's the realizing of the hidden cost. What I see and what I believe, and I know it because I lived it, is there's so many people are just unaware of the hidden cost, or they
Mm,
don't want to be aware. And if you start to engage with it, I know it can be hard because it can lead to you having to sit and have conversations with yourself and your life about things that maybe you just don't want to. I get that. I do get that. But the other thing I would say you wanted about this is what I'm around, and I just absolutely I think it's appalling, is around women's health, around breast cancer, is there is no messaging around alcohol and the
mm,
possible increased risk. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a medic, I'm not going to say that it's a directly causes, but it's not even a conversation. I mean, you go for your checkups with your the mammogram. There's no messaging around it. I
No,
mean, I did the
nobody
charity
knows.
walk for breast cancer now. Okay, it was a few years ago. I was handed a glass of Prosecco at the finish line.
it's on, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
You do see that tie, don't you? Sorry, James. You do see that tie a lot of the time with those kind of events, those kind of 5K
Oh,
runs, women 5K runs, and they celebrate at the end with a glass of fizz, and it's just yeah, it's that
it's
messaging,
not
but it's
right for us, and I
uh,
know, and I'm not saying I know, but I think women deserve better, and I think we need to have the information. It's that, as though other people say, that sleight of hand is starting to really, really make me quite cross, and it's everywhere. I mean, I was
it's insidious. It's really
it's
insidious.
insidious. I was in a running shop in a tiny town in Arizona. My husband and I were looking at trainers because he's got plantar fasciitis and he was looking at all these insoles, and we were with all these there was this people passionate about trail running and elite athletes, and there was a notice board in this shop. Now, they weren't their notices, admittedly, it was a community notice board, And on that notice board was a lovely drawing, and it was Sunday, 10 a.m., beer and yoga.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I've come across that.
And
we've
I'm
got
like, you have to
How
be.
did that happen?
But that is, it's so, that's how embedded and entrenched
yeah,
it is. And as you
yeah.
say, it's only when I feel like, I saw somebody said this, like, I feel like I've escaped from a cult. I do. I literally feel like I've escaped from a cult. And the other thing I always say is, it's like Emperor's New Clothes to me.
Mm.
I literally am like that old nursery. What is it? A nursery? I was saying Emperor's New
Yeah, the Emperor's
Clothes.
New
And I'm
Clothes. Yeah,
like, there's nothing there.
yeah.
This is mad.
I think the crazy thing is though, when you talk about being in a cult, invariably what you were saying earlier about when you say to people you're alcohol free, they look at you like you're in a cult.
No,
Do you
I'm
know,
getting on with
because
living.
it's so, do you know what I mean? Because it's so
Yeah.
like,
No,
not
I
considered normal by many people.
I don't, I
Ch-
think it's changing. I don't, I know I've yeah, it's definitely changing for younger people. The messaging, the BBC website had an article this week that young people, and I know the hospitality industry is under pressure, and I know that we want to get people off screens, out of their houses and socializing in real times. And I wish the hospitality industry would embrace alcohol-free options a bit more and make it possible for us all, like we had in Manchester a bit, you know.
yes, yeah,
Can I
yeah,
Uh,
just stop you there? I've got to have a very,
yeah,
very quick rant on that point because you just reminded me of something. So, programs like Saturday Kitchen, right? They're on around about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. They cook out this beautiful meal, lovely, and they're all like they've got like wine testers on there as well.
yeah,
I
Everyone's
know.
yeah,
like drinking wine. It's
yeah.
fucking 11 o'clock in the
So
morning. What
if
are you
you
doing?
are if you are a woman like me still drinking and you're starting to feel unsettled about your relationship with, or you're starting to feel, I felt that I was in the movie The Deer Hunter and there was a bullet in the chamber and I was playing Russian roulette. And at some point, that barrel was going to spin round with the bullet and get me, to do with things like breast cancer, because I knew that this was out there, but I was in. It's real, and it makes you feel very unsettled and defensive on the inside. It's awful. And yet you sit down when you're feeling a bit like starting to have those thoughts, like I was, and you put the TV on, and there's a drama of somebody holding down a job, having a professional career, or whatever it might be. They come in and it's ubiquitous, the glass of
Mm,
wine. And so you get to that thing of, see, it's normal. It's
mm,
just me. See, there's nothing wrong with it. It's everywhere. It's presented as
mm,
just completely benign. It's almost presented as benign,
mm,
and it's
mm.
not. It's
Yeah,
really not.
but change is coming because we get all the
I heard
we get all the
that.
official.
I heard that. Yes, I was very. I know that. I think is it Ireland have brought in messaging around drinking on bottles of wine and what
Yeah,
pregnancy. I think they
mm,
have.
Yeah,
mm,
the Irish get kind of a bit, I think, branded unfairly about, you're Irish, so you've got to be a massive drinker. But the
But I'm
Irish are,
talking about their
yeah,
messaging.
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
The Irish government are way ahead of the
yeah,
UK in terms of how they approach alcohol. You're right. They've got, I'm not sure exactly what's on the warning labels, but I don't know if it's cancer or anything. But
Nothing
yeah,
will change without consumer power have a lot, but we all know about, well, I know all about, how deeply embedded in lobbying the alcohol industry is. We know how
mm,
powerful it is, and I'm not here to be completely all anti big business or anti alcohol, but it gets away with a lot, and we know it learned from the tobacco industry. And I mean, I can remember going to the supermarket in the early 90s on a Sunday and waiting for them to pull the blinds up on the beer.
yeah, I remember
Remember
that.
yeah,
that? And
yeah,
Yeah,
now I have to climb over slabs of beer to pay for my petrol.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's done a brilliant job of
yeah. When
getting
did it sneak
itself
into petrol
everywhere.
stations?
It's just literally, it's
Come
done,
round.
and hats off to it. It has done a fantastic job of getting itself absolutely everywhere.
Well, I often
Everywhere.
refer to this when I used to drink loads coming out of London on the train. Well, when I say loads, not loads on the train every time, but it was a big thing for me. It's like finish a meeting in London, come home, grab a couple
Yeah,
of beers on the way back, and it strikes me now you're going to Waterloo, and you're both the pubs in Waterloo at the exit door have got a fridge that says train beers on it. It's like
I know.
and yeah, I
You
mean,
Old
can't
school
unsee it,
train
Steve,
buddies.
can you? You can't
Yeah,
you
unsee it.
can't unsee it, and
And
that's
it's a female thing. It's Pink the Drink as well. I think there
think the
was a
drink exactly.
there was a campaign group in Scotland that started to push back on this because when women, I think it's all started around the time I started a family. When you're quite vulnerable emotionally,
Mm,
and the mummy wine o'clock, the wine thing, wine becoming ubiquitous. It all started around then, and do you know what? It works. It really works.
mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know. So, yes, I am. I will never not be grateful that I don't have that awful inward feeling when I see an article or something that makes me think, yeah, this isn't good.
Mm.
And then I feel, but I don't do anything about it. It's I feel it's so great to be out of that. It really is. Mm.
Well, one thing I'd like to ask you about, just to kind of dial it back a little bit, you spoke about there earlier on how before you went alcohol free that it was what you did, it was part of your identity. One of
Oh
the things
yeah.
that people have a bit of a challenge with is when alcohol's removed, everything they perceive that life is going to be quite joyless, and I guess it kind of is to an extent at the beginning for some people because they've got this big gap of something's gone that's been there for 30 years, and they're like, great, what do I do now? How long did it take you to kind of fill that space and find new things that light you up? How did you redefine your identity?
I think one of the things where I said before I was really lucky was I had a lot of things in place already because I was living this split double life. And I would be trying to present to certain people as someone who didn't really drink, and then to the party crowd as the ringleader of the party crowd. So I'm very grateful that I already had that space to actually just fully go and embrace. So actually, what I did was I just stepped fully into the version of myself. This sounds really like kind of like, doesn't it? Fully into the version of myself.
I was my
But
best self.
effectively, that's literally what I did. I had to
Mm.
stop lying and bullshitting about it all and just go and fully be what I really wanted to be. So I'm very grateful that I had that. The other thing was I'm a really curious person, so it just gave me the confidence to just to get curious and get out there and find like-minded spaces and people. So I wasn't left, and I know it can be a real thing for a lot of people. I wasn't left sitting in this empty space of what now. I do know and I do believe, I think there's a guy I really rate, he's actually on called David Gibbs talks about this. It is your responsibility to go out there and find your tribe. That is
Mm.
the work. Part of that is the work that you need to go and do. Life, you've got to go and find life and you've got to go and build it. So and if there are loads of spaces now. And the more you listen to podcasts like this, and the more you read books, and the more you follow accounts on Instagram, it will help you grow confidence. And even if it's joining in the dialogue on an Instagram account
Yeah.
or joining a community where you start to feel more comfortable. But I think for me, and what I understand why I understand about the whole kind of and the deeper level of psychology and philosophy, it's a life transition and you're in an ending of something in relation with that and you've got to let that end and you've got to be very treat yourself with complete compassion and grace and put it down, thank it for whatever wherever you are in life, no stain, no shame, no stigma,
Mm.
let it go and accept that ending. And yes, there will be a neutral zone where you might be in that liminal space of I'm no longer this and I don't know what's next, but just keep curious and stay in it, and you will get yourself across that river and onto the other side and into that a new beginning. But it is a chance for a new beginning, and what could be better than that? And certainly for me in my 50s to think this is like, what's they say, anticipated regret is the greatest form of wisdom. And I do say this, like, what did I know or what did I learn or what did I do today that I wish I'd known or learned or done 10 years ago?
Mm.
So what does me 10 years from now need me to learn or do today? Um,
L-
and 66-year-old me needs me to keep on trying different things because I met him actually. Have you ever watched SAS Who Dares Wins with,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I met
It's
Ollie
brilliant.
Ollerton, Matthew Ollerton, because he was one of the big influences on me as well, because they're so direct with the psychology, those special forces guys. In the
Yeah. Yeah.
show, I always watched it for how they read people, not the physical challenges. um, and they pull no punches. And it's said with compassion, but they say to you what you need to hear. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we don't do enough of from a good place. And he said, alcohol keeps you small,
Yeah.
and it does. And I know that because I know from my old world, and I could see a world that could possibly have been waiting for me if I'd carry. And it does keep you small. It does shrink your world.
Mm.
You may not be aware of it, but it does.
It's even harder when you're 5'7" like me.
Oh, come on,
My,
running
my...
200 miles. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I mean, you were doing your Ironmans and your ultras and stuff, weren't you, before you stopped drinking? Am I right about it? You'd already, you see, you already had that. You'd built that muscle of the running and that fitness
I
love.
had, yeah. It was very much like it was very much like you just said there. You always had something there, but it was totally different. I'd done one ultra before
Right.
I stopped
But you
drinking.
knew
I'd
that
done no
was,
Ironman, but I'd celebrate after every
yeah, that's it.
race with a load of beers.
But you still had that in a way. There was something that was pulling you.
Yes,
And I, so when I was listening to content, I was sometimes saying, it's like if you allow your mind to be open, you allow yourself to get curious from a place of grace and compassion, you'll find something that pulls you forward. I truly believe that. If you approach it, my personal belief this is from a place of, I'm an awful person, it's terrible, it's shameful, it's dreadful, it's got to go, and you hard stop without doing any, I don't think that will necessarily set you up for success. But if
exactly.
you allow yourself to be curious, and even if you're still drinking a bit, I was for the first 2 or 3 months really consuming content. And it was hearing voices. There was somebody called Sarah Rusbatch. She actually
Yeah,
worked with
yeah,
a friend of mine. She has a life very similar to mine in the 90s. She described her working life sounded just like mine.
yeah.
She described bluntly what she was like with her children when they were younger and holidays and the drinking around that, just like
Mm,
mine. And
mm,
I was like, and I could hear, wow, she has a story just like mine. And she's free of all the crap that I'm still carrying around. I want her life. I mean,
mm,
when I say I want her life, but that's I think the aspirational side is so important. So
100%.
yeah, that's where
100%.
I am. Yes.
I'd like to ask you the question, Joe, that I asked Catherine
Oh gosh, go on then.
and
Catherine,
And
Catherine and her
Dave.
nine books. Yeah, it's an
Yeah, and
amazing woman.
Dave. And if you knew what you knew now when
Uh,
you were 16, 17, 18,
mm.
would you have changed anything? Would you have chosen not to drink, or is the drinking and the life that you went through before you arrived at that decision to change, has that made you what you are now?
In part, I think it has. I don't know if the incredibly anxious, awkward, socially awkward me in the world that existed in the 80s and 90s. And I did have some fun times, and I've definitely got brilliant friends today from that. I mean, I'm not gonna, it wasn't all bad. I think for me, when I look back, I wish I'd understood more about the massive life transition of becoming a mother and that
Mm,
I'd called time on it back then and allowed me not to cling on to the concept of alcohol as some link to youth and the elixir of fun and youth and
mm,
I wish that so it's a mixed response, my answer to that question. I wish for a world where we can have some of the experiences I had without alcohol having to be some sort of default mechanism that enables it. So if you're a little bit shy and anxious and on the sort of slightly neurodiverse spectrum like I am, there's more other ways of you're able to be yourself without needing that crutch because the last 15 years were not easy. And I
mm.
really wouldn't want to go through that again. And I wouldn't want any woman to go through that. I really wouldn't. And I don't think, I think, Steve, you've talked about this, and so as another guy we know, Ted, that your family were a big inspiration for you and your relationship with your children.
Yeah,
Actually, that was a big motivator for me when my children became adults of what adult relationship did I want with them. So
yeah,
there are things about I think I just wasn't as present as I really would have liked to have been when they were younger, but I'm not going to spend my time beating myself up about that. Um, so that I do have regrets around that. Yeah, for sure I do. I wish I'd left
yeah.
it really in the 90s, if I'm honest.
I mean, it was definitely something for me, but I didn't change overnight. It's like
No, I didn't.
4 weeks old my son was when I kind of had that fall asleep on the train, wake up at the end of the stop, and kind of
Yeah.
give my head a wobble and say I need to give myself a kick up the arse. But it was another 5 years before I did it. So
Yeah.
but definitely, yeah, it was a turning point. So there's that element. I mean, we've asked each other the same question about whether you'd have drunk in your youth, and yeah, I would. I wouldn't have changed it. I still, like you said, I've so many friends, so many experiences, everything else. But I just my only regret is I didn't stop just a bit sooner than I did, I think.
Yeah, I think it's I see that sometimes the beliefs that I've handed down to my sons, that it's kind of like what you do, and I just see as you move through your 20s and with your career life and everything else, you know what? You sometimes it is like going through life with a bloody handbrake on. It can just
Mm,
make things harder than it needs to be. And if you can find other ways of just bloody loving life without it, then do it because the reward is just exponential. There's just no cost. To say it's just that it's that hidden cost, and at some time it's like writing. You got to cash that check, and my
mm,
I just couldn't cash those checks anymore. I was like so overdrawn.
mm.
Um, I don't know if that's a bit of a crass, but the metaphor really works. But yeah, that's how I felt. Definitely, a friend of mine, she used the handbrake thing to do with her relationship with smoking. And she was like, and I was like, yeah, I get that. That's how I used to feel. It's like I'm kind of quite an ambitious person in some ways, and I just wanted better than this. I was like, this can't be it. It just can't be it. I don't
Mm.
want to age. And I knew from a sense of personal pride I actually didn't want to be an older drinker. I really didn't. I had quite a lot of ick around that. And yet 50 was in the receding and 60 was the next big milestone birthday. I'm like, you're now into your 50s and you're still drinking.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So, yeah.
that's that's definitely one that was increasingly becoming a thing for me. Waking up 3 o'clock in the morning, thinking, when are you going to stop this? What, you're
Yeah.
just going to keep doing this until you're an old man,
And did
and
you, how
knowing
much,
that
did I ask you, James, did you, those thoughts, did you ever say them out loud? Because I would have those conversations with myself a lot, and then it would be like, oh, there's a wedding, or oh, there's this. And if I could,
Mm.
maybe if I don't drink from now till that date. And I think the biggest thing to me was the morning I said, that's it, no more. I literally was like, that's it. The first thing I did, my husband was playing golf. As soon as he came home, I said to him, I want to share something with you. And he said, what is it? And I said, I'm not going to drink anymore. I don't know whether he believed me, it doesn't matter, but I said it out loud and I meant it.
Yeah.
But I had to make myself accountable.
I never did. There was no fanfare. There was no nothing. I just,
It was very muted fanfare,
yeah,
but
I
I
was,
did
I
tell
was,
him.
but I was, yeah, I can remember exactly when, and it would be coming up 5 years now. But I went for a few beers with my brother. Um, I knew I was going to take a break, and in my mind, I was thinking 3 months. And I got on the train home, and I didn't drink again. That was it. It was,
Yeah.
I was going to take a 3 month break, and I don't, there was never that last sip of the beer I ever had kind of
Oh,
feeling. It
no,
was like
no.
it just happened, and it happened through a process, and that was the way it worked for me. And
I think for me, it was more there was a final hangover. And for me, I realised I can't be into the moderation thing. I know you've talked about it with other guess, but I cannot be in dialogue with it. In fact, I won't
mm,
be in dialogue with it. I'm not talking to you anymore. We're done. I have no unfinished business with alcohol, none. I've
mm,
had it at funerals, I've had it at christenings, I've had it at weddings, I've had it at work dues, I've had it on my own, I've had it with my husband, I've had it with my children. There's no there is no unfinished business.
no,
I'm done. Literally, I'm done.
yeah,
I'm just walking away. I'm out. It's like I quit the ring. I'm out. I'm not interested in talking to you anymore because you don't want anything good for me. And even if I was to try and say have a drink, the white noise in my head, because I do have a bit of ADHD, to manage that relationship and engage with it, I'm not giving you any of my time. I'm literally
yeah,
not giving you any of my time. That's how it had to be for me. But
yeah,
everyone's
I was
different.
the same. I was the same. It was it was make one decision. Um, I tried for five years, sort of stop start stop
Yeah.
start stop start. A month, 2 months, 3 months over a 5 year period, going round and round and round and round and round. And the time that it stuck, there wasn't any kind of okay, this is going to. It just kind of happened. Part of the way that it happened is I just started. my September to November break, which was an annual thing after drinking like a maniac all summer and then taking a break before Christmas, which had become seasonal for me.
Yeah.
And my mum passed away, and I was a week into it, and I was a bit like, I knew it was going to be much harder for me sort of dealing with that if I
Yeah.
brought alcohol back in, because about 6 months before my dog passed away, which was absolutely horrendous, and having alcohol in the mix just made it a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that I kind of knew that was making me think, this I'm just not going to this I'm going to just not going to drink, again for a month or two. But then kind of randomly out of the blue, I spoke at my mum's. I gave a speech at my mum's funeral, and literally on the day, I decided that I was going to say that the best way that I could honour my mum's memory was to look after my health. Because my mum always used to say, if I could have one thing in life, it would be that you're happy and healthy. My mum
Yes.
always used
Yeah.
to said that, and I
Mm,
said in front of everyone in the church, I'm never going to drink again. I'm going to basically, the best way I can honour mum is to respect my health and be happy and healthy, because that's what she would have wanted. So from this day forth, I'm never going to drink again. And I stuck to it for that, because I kind of
Wow.
almost saw it subconsciously as an opportunity to lock it in. I've been
mm,
trying to get there for years, and I thought
Yeah.
this could be an opportunity. And I didn't even have that thought, but I literally just said it. It just came out, and my dad was like, "What, never?" My dad was kind
Oh,
of a bit
yes.
like, yeah, he wasn't very happy about it.
so
But you can't go back on something like that. Once you
yeah,
said
No,
that
you
in front of a
can't.
load of people,
no,
in front of you, you can't go back on it.
no.
And that kind of was the thing that locked it in. And it literally was a spur of the moment thing that I just kind
Mm.
of came out with it, and it just
Gosh.
it locked it in for me.
How do you guys, when you're around alcohol or if you smell it, what kind of, because my body physically clenches.
Yeah,
Well, I
I'm.
don't. No,
It doesn't bother me.
doesn't bother me.
It's
I don't. I think I
just,
don't really smell the difference. I drink a lot of alcohol-free beer, and I know Steve does as well, and it all smells the same to me. You,
It
you
does,
can't.
you see, it doesn't to me. I drink alcohol-free stuff too, but I find it, I have an involuntary physical reaction to it. I think it's because I was literally poisoned by it virtually. Um, it ruined my gut microbiome. I think I'm kind of got this. Honestly, it makes me. I dread to think what would happen if. I mean, I won't ever, but I think it would make me so ill if I was to have a drink.
mm,
Yeah, I'm great. I'm grateful to my body that it let me know. That's one thing I would say, because I don't think it really. I think there was, I say, the hidden cost, but it didn't. Maybe it just didn't really hide the cost from me. Maybe it made it really bloody obvious,
mm.
for whatever reason. So I'll be grateful for that, I suppose. Yeah, it's
So just to be kind of wrap up, Joe. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. I mean, I know what you're doing now, so to
So
speak, but for the
when
benefit
I
of the
met,
listeners,
well, when
where,
I met, no, it's fine. When I met you with Andy, I was very much wanting to get into not get into I don't really know how to phrase this. The sort of, I'd had, because it had been so transformational on my life, as you said, I don't really, it's about so much more than stopping drinking, that I wanted to help other people's, but I don't really know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to work with that. But actually, that just opened the door more into the much bigger existential questions around midlife and philosophy. And I just found it just kind of like took me in a bit of a different direction. And so I work with people of a very similar age to me who are facing those really big changes to your life. And that's the one that comes about, which I started to see and read in my world, was when your working life changes after 30 years, be that restructuring, redundancy, retirement, because that has literally been the vehicle that has provided the structure and rhythm, routine, income, significance, usefulness, met so many of your psychological needs and your purpose and meaning and your reason to get out of bed in the morning. And we don't talk about it enough. And then one day it's kind of just not there anymore. And the word retirement, which actually I don't like because I hate the connotation that comes with it, is this like you step into a phase of managed decline. Well,
Mm,
we're kind of living longer, and if you're going to retire at 60, you might have another 30 years. Now, I'm not saying that from 60 to 90 they're all going to be the same, but that's quite a big old chunk of your life. So, what are you going to do with
mm,
it?
mm.
mm.
And it's you talked a bit about when you were drinking, did you have a personality or a persona that came with that? And for many people that's true, and you let that end. And it's a very similar thing with working life or your professional identity, is if that's not there anymore, then who are you? And actually, what does interest you, and what have you maybe not paid attention to for a few years? And your fitness and how you what you said at your mum's funeral, that on have really resonated with me, because I think this is all part of it, and it's come up with two of my clients actually, and on a sales call last week, totally unprompted. In the I've decided not to drink anymore, because it really shows up of I'm either not working and I'm drinking more, or I've just started to realize and how I feel about myself physically and how I'm aging. And that vehicle, it used to be a lot about client entertaining. Well, if that's gone, so why am I drinking? So the drinking thing can sit within that big life change that comes for people when your working life changes and you're put in that box with a label on it that in the vast majority is retirement. And for many people, it's just not how they see themselves. So it's a start of a really big life transition, and it's and a transformation. And at time it is for a lot of people, it's an opportunity to actually completely reframe how you feel about aging and life and what it holds, and go out and explore some different sides to yourself and what you might find interesting to do. So because that's kind of what happened to me in a reverse way, really. I've been navigating that on and off in a cyclical basis for years, really, since I left my first job, and then all the other things I've done in between. And I've had periods of time where I felt deeply uncomfortable because I don't really know who I am or what my identity is, because I can't hand you a job title. It's not
Mm.
easy.
Yeah. And what better way to sum up exactly what we've just been talking about? It's taking that one thing away. It's not just about giving up the drink, is it? And by doing that, that's
No, it's
lit you up and given you the opportunity to go forward and help people with an entirely different angle and an entirely different approach to life. And
yeah, because I was say I've been doing it in school. I've been sort of working and doing some stuff in schools, and I've been doing things in the criminal justice system and doing some things with a local charity. And then I got a job with a charity that has equipped to tick that very box to make me make sense to the world. And it was an absolutely unmitigated disaster.
mm,
Um, so I've been through some real endings and messy middles myself in the last 15 years. I can tell you, I really have. But it was only really finally removing the kind of white noise of booze in my head, and all, and
mm,
how that I could really see how that just played in so many places that I just didn't even really realize it was, because it
mm,
kind of dictated my psyche and how I felt about myself.
exactly.
So, yeah. So that's me.
Well, it's been an absolutely lovely chat to
Ooh,
well
we should
to
do things more often in person.
yes, we absolutely should. We
Oh,
absolutely should.
you haven't mentioned about our rock and roll night in Manchester in the
We have on
basement
previous
of
episodes.
the basement of the
Vegan.
Buddhist Centre, in the vegan alcohol-free bar, where we had a really good time.
Yeah. We did have a very, very good time. And believe you me, if someone could get me to eat a vegan burger and enjoy it, then there's
You
hope for
loved it.
everybody.
You were moaning like nothing I've ever known before. You're like, bloody vegan food,
I
vegan food. What the fuck's vegan food? And he loved it. It was
the
a lovely
agenda
night.
was the agenda was not to find the vegan food. It was I was going out with three of you guys, all in the kind of alcohol free space, and we wanted to find somewhere that we were not going
Yeah.
to be sucking on the
Do you know what?
I don't know, Baroni Zero or
I know a bit.
I, Go on.
I know a little bit of short on time, but I just really want to share. We've spoken about it on the pod earlier a little while ago, but that's the first time I've ever been out with everyone being alcohol free, because there was
Yeah.
five
yeah.
of us. We'd all known each other for a few years. And the one thing I noticed afterwards, which didn't occur to me at the time, normally when I go out, after about a couple of hours, I'm start looking at my watch, thinking, okay, when can I conceivably go home?
But we
I
got kicked out.
We got kicked out of the place, and
Kicked out, and I forget.
at no point during the evening did
No.
that thought cross my mind that
No.
okay, I could probably go in a couple of hours or whatever. It didn't even cross my mind ever, and that always
Right.
pops in my head when
Yeah.
I'm out socially.
Yeah.
And I could have stayed
Yeah.
out for much longer, and I had such a lovely time. And it's
It
really
was.
weird not having your your brand, because your brand is normally, oh, you're the person who doesn't drink, oh, and
And they were
that's
literally
you.
sweeping up the floor around. It's
Yeah,
like,
They
it
were.
was
I
They
need
great.
to
were.
go
It
home
was so
now.
nice, but it just
It
it
was.
just shows you don't, the buzz you get from socializing is from the human connection. There was
Exactly.
no alcohol involved, and we all had a
Exactly.
lovely time. It was
I
awesome.
know
So good.
that's what I wish I could say. Honestly, I used to think I was an introverted person who used alcohol to become extroverted. I think am quite extroverted because I do really love people and social connection. I genuinely do, and I love the energy. And I think it's so brilliant to be able to just think I have everything that I thought drinking gave me without any of the crap.
Yeah, that goes
What
with it.
could be better?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, it's been an amazing chat. And
Yeah.
yeah, we definitely need to get together again very soon, all of us, and yeah, go and get
Well,
thrown out
yes.
another
I
restaurant.
say, well, you were on the whenever you're running around on the south. I say running around on the south.
Running around like
Yeah,
some maniac.
exactly.
I
Let me
was down
know.
there yesterday, but a bit further up this way from you. So, but
Okay.
yeah, I did a run on the South Downs yesterday. It was lovely. But yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we'll definitely
Next time I'm
have
down that
to
way, give you a holler.
meet up in tournament. Well, thank you. Honestly, thank you so much for having me on.
Oh,
And
it's been lovely to have you on.
I haven't
I don't know
really
why we didn't do it sooner.
speak about
Yeah,
it before, but
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I wish you all the best. You're doing important. Honestly, you'll help people. You'll never even know. It's a conversation that it just starts sowing that seed. And it also, I find these things they give people language that they don't yet have for themselves to articulate their own situation. And I think that's so
Mm,
important.
thank you. That's
Thanks,
awesome.
Joe. We appreciate that. Kind words.
Awesome. And we shall see you soon.
Yeah. See you soon.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye bye.
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 Bye.